Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Team Venom Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Rory Bailey, and this week's episode is a very special From the Vault episode. Essentially, what I'm going to be doing every now and again is peppering these interviews in because we've had hundreds of interviews done over the years for various outlets that they've all been part of the Team Venom Media channel, and some of them have been used in podcasts, some of them have just been put on the YouTube channel. But I figured that since we've now got a semi-successful wrestling podcast, that some of these would actually be quite useful to put out as a full episode. So for this week, I'm going to gift you wonderful listeners with the goodness of an interview with Eric Bischoff, the former head of WCW Creative, former head of WWE SmackDown Creative, former Raw General Manager. He's done all sorts of things. One of the investors in TNA at one point was part of their on-screen authority stuff there. He's done loads. Eric Bischoff is one of the biggest figures in wrestling history. He led WCW to victory over WWE in the ratings in the mid-90s for 83 consecutive weeks, and he was obviously the creator of the NWO. So Eric Bischoff's one of the all-time greats in the Hall of Fame, rightfully so. We had the opportunity back in 2018, so 6 years ago, at the time of recording this, to go to Leicester in the UK with a company called MDA Promotions, who had provided us with an interview with Bret Hart before, which was awesome, and that'll make its way onto this podcast at some point. And myself and the former Team Venom Media contributor, James Biddles, went over to Leicester and met with Eric Bischoff and sat and chatted to him for a good 10-20 minutes before the show that he was doing. So yeah, it was great. It was a really brilliant experience. Bischoff was absolutely awesome to talk to, and yeah, well, anyway, without further ado, I've been waffling for 2 minutes, so let's get straight into the interview. Enjoy.
I'm back, and I'm better than ever. Got a knack for making things better. Face facts, 'cause your opinion don't matter. This a maniac is gonna step on whomever.
First thing I wanted to ask you, we're currently on the last stop of your UK tour, courtesy of MDA Promotions. What made you want to do the series of intimate fan interactions?
Because I enjoy it so much. You know, throughout my career, the last 30 years, I've had the privilege of being on television and putting on a show and doing what we do. But fans don't always get an opportunity to ask the questions that they've always wanted. Wrestling fans are very passionate about the wrestling business, and they're very knowledgeable, and they have questions. So this type of question and answer format in smaller venues, to give fans an opportunity to really ask questions they've always wanted to know about is really, it's more fun for me than it is for them. So I'm having a blast.
Yeah, so I can't read your writing, sorry. I'm going to go into one of mine. Sorry, first thing to say, this is my first interview I've ever done, so it's an honour to be here speaking to you. Huge fan of the podcast.
I feel really bad that the very first interview you've ever done, you're doing it with me, because I will fuck with you. I'm really sorry that you felt the need to tell me that, but go ahead.
Start with the best and then I'll learn from this. So I was watching the StarCast Death of WCW panel recently, and Kevin Sullivan mentions in that he hopes that someone will give you a chance in the industry again. Is that something that you're interested in, and what kind of role would it take to get you back into the industry?
That was very nice of Kevin to say, but honestly, I'm very proud of the career I've had in professional wrestling. I'm very satisfied with my life as it is right now. And I don't have the desire to travel and do the things that would be required to really have an important role in the industry again. So I'm really more happy doing what I'm doing right now than I would be being in the business again.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm having a fucking blast.
How
much fun is this?
You get to make your own schedule and you get to do.
To be fair, for a first question.
That's a very good job, though. I'll bust your ass later.
At one point, you were responsible for Nitro beating WWF for a couple of years in a row. I know you've been asked about this lots. But when the Attitude Era kicked in, what do you think could have saved WCW's rating-wise?
Nothing really. What really turned things around, I mean, it was two things, really. WWF copied our formula. You know, the Attitude Era, you know, DX was really a version of NWO, right? So they kind of copied our formula. That was the number one thing that they did right. The number two thing that we did wrong was while they were doing that right, my own company was deciding that they wanted to be more family friendly and they wanted to tone down the edginess of the product. Well, that's exactly what we used to build our audience. So we turned our audience away while they were doing the very things that we did to gain an audience. And it was kind of a double punch effect, if you will. And there's nothing really we could have done differently because that was the mandate from Time Warner.
Okay, that's cool. Obviously, you had a long career working for many companies. You were at WCW, WWE, and Impact. What was it across your career that you were most proud of?
Well, that's a very good question. It's too hard to say. You know, I'm most proud that I was part of something that still matters. Mm-hmm. The fact that it's 2018 and I'm in Leicester, England, talking to a room full of people that give a shit means that we did something right, and to be a part of that and still people want to talk about it to this day, it's pretty cool. That's what I'm most proud of.
I think you made, as a fan, you had a great answer in the Monday Night War debate with Bruce, where you said, okay, WCW isn't in business, but you won the war because you changed the way that wrestling is forever. And I think that's something as fans we really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
It's so hard when somebody asks a question like that. What's the one thing? You know, if you ask me, what are the 10 things?
Yeah.
That's an easier answer. But when somebody says, what's the one thing? It's just like, you know what? I'm just happy to be here. You know, somebody still gives a shit. That's pretty awesome.
One of the things I quite liked was when you and Hogan went to Impact, and it looked like things were going to turn around for Impact for a while when you guys were on there, and you put a lot of focus on Abyss as someone that you were both endorsing on screen, saying it's going to be the next big thing, and he got inducted into the Hall of Fame this weekend. So is that something that you're proud of for him because of you guys having such an influence on his run at the top?
If you ask me a question, I'm going to be honest.
Okay. And
it's not always going to come out great. I think Chris Park, who's Abyss's real name, is genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. And he's a talented guy. And he's a very, very smart man. I was never a fan of his character. That's why I changed his character from Abyss to... I can't remember that name. Joseph Park, because I wanted to see more dimension, and you know, to me, the Abyss character was really a bad copy of Mankind. It didn't feel original to me. There was nothing really creative about it. He was a big guy, and he is. He's a very physically tough human being that endured a lot of pain. But it wasn't imaginative. There was nothing creative about it. I loved him much more as Joseph Park. But I'm happy for him that he was inducted into the Impact Hall of Fame. I don't really feel like we had that much to do with his character. I think his character was on a very successful trajectory before we got involved. We just happened to like him because he's just genuinely such a nice guy. But I don't think that neither Hulk or I had much to do with that.
Okay, thank you.
How do you feel about WWE? Obviously, last year they ran Starrcade. There's rumours recently that they've registered Halloween Havoc. How do you feel about them running all WCW events?
I think it's awesome. I'm really glad, especially Halloween Havoc.
Yeah.
Because, here's the challenge when you're producing pay-per-views. From the fans' perspective, each pay-per-view should have its own personality. You know, WrestleMania we know already does. King of the Ring already does because of the format of it. There are certain pay-per-views, they call them tent poles. You know, they kind of hold up the whole tent, just 2 or 3 or 4 poles. But each pay-per-view should have its own personality and vibe. And Halloween Havoc is a great pay-per-view because, you know, I don't know about here in the UK, but in the States, Halloween's like a big damn deal, right? Kids go out begging for candy, and adults, you know, have really crazy parties. Halloween is really fun, but it's a very thematic pay-per-view that's easy to merchandise and build upon from a marketing perspective. So I'm thrilled that they're really building on that Halloween Havoc pay-per-view. It's one that it's shocking that it's taken them this long to figure that out.
Agreed, definitely.
Fucking idiots. All they had to do is pick up the phone and call me.
One more question, boys.
One more question. Okay. Well, the last thing I'll ask you then is, what other projects have you got coming up, and is there anything that you can tell us about?
I've got a television series that I'm with a group of people I've been working on, and we're pitching it to a major network. We've already pitched it. Hope to get a green light on that in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks. I've been working on a movie project for the last 14 months that I'm about ready to close, and will be announced in June. I can't talk about it because it's with a major studio, and I've signed an NDA because they like to get all the press and determine when the press leaks. So that project is, like I said, it's been in development for about 14 months. And a brand new movie project that I've only been working on for about a month and a half, that I'm pretty excited about. Other than that, I'm doing this kind of stuff because it's fun, keeps me busy, gets me out of the house, so the wife's happy to see me when I come home. Otherwise, it's kind of like, oh, you again. But when I'm gone for a week, it's like, oh, I'm so glad you're back. My dog's happy, my wife's happy. It's all good.
Okay. Thank you very much, man. It's been awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Eric.
Good job, by the way.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.